Thank you very much for the invitation. I'll just start by pointing out how much I take Shriram's points to heart. He gave a talk that he really emphasized was written in a researchy way, namely you have something which is measurable, which is quantifiable, towards being repeatable. Okay? So Yale-NUS only existed for 10 years, and I joined when it was in its third year. And so what I'm going to tell you is not reproducible, okay? And it's a best effort. See it as something anecdotal, all right? But relevant anyway. Okay, so now the way the talk is going to work is I'm going to give you the slides, and then I would like you to have the Yale-NUS experience for computer science. So I will overrun, okay? But, so you're welcome to leave by the time, but you have to see that this is the fun part of that. So the way it works is that there will be 3 theater plays, if you like, and then you will just enact them, and then you will have the Yale-NUS experience as far as computer science is concerned. Okay? So that's the deal. Now I start. Imagine that you are young again. Not just that, but imagine that you were accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Sundry. Congratulations for that, by the way. And now, with a beating heart, you're attending your very first lecture about magic. Wow. Your wand has been put on your desk with a feather next to it. And you're told to grab your wand, wave it over the feather, and enunciate Van Winchgarden grammar or something. Okay, it's a computer science joke, okay. And then the feather is supposed to levitate. And if it doesn't, it's your fault. Likewise, if you're allergic to feathers. The next lecture is about potions, and then the first thing the clearly insecure teacher does is to bully you because you do not know any of the keywords that he's supposed to teach you. Okay, I do remember the book and the movie, and this is what is being described here. Gosh, can you imagine computer science being taught like that? So let's backtrack and start again. Imagine that you are young again, okay? And not just that, but imagine that you also were accepted at Yale-NUS College. Congratulations for that, by the way. So the motto of Yale-NUS College was a community of learning founded by 2 great universities in Asia for the world. So Yale University and NUS joined effort to create the college education from the US in Asia and to adapt it to Asia and see what comes out of it. And the experiment lasted 10 years and then was discontinued. I mean, it was cleverly discontinued. It stopped at year 6, and then there was no new incoming students. So time for the pipeline to flush out. All right, so let's backtrack and start again, but this time for good. Imagine that you are young again. Not just that, but imagine that you also were accepted at Yale-NUS College. Congratulations for that, by the way. And now, with a beating heart, you are attending your very first lecture about computer science. So, how computer science was introduced at Yale-NUS College. And the tagline is from Montaigne, a French philosopher from the 16th century, which I translated as better be mindful than have a mind full, which is kind of the motto for the rest of the talk. So I'm talking to liberal arts students, okay? They're not a computer scientist, which is not the same, okay? So it sounds like a good idea to start with Shakespeare, okay? What's in the name? So we start by defining computer science, the science of computers. Okay, I paraphrase Dijkstra, but still, astronomy is not named telescope science, if you think about it. So let's patch it. It's called computing science, what we do with computers. And there are authoritative examples, like at NUS, we have the School of Computing. And SEM is the Association for Computing Machinery, okay? But there is another objection by Peter Nauer, another Turing Award, and he objected that in saying it's not about computer science, computing is not about the processor, it is not the processing, but it is what we process, namely data. And so it should really be called data processing in the Danish datalogy, data science. Okay, this was before the statistician stepped in. So, but yes, there was another objection by a German guy, Steinbuch, French guy, Dreyfus. The big picture, we should look for the big picture. The reason why we process data, and the reason is to automate the treatment of information. And that's why it's called informatics. All right, so all in all, data science is about the things we process, computing science is about what we do, computer science is about how we do it, and informatics is about why we do it. All in all, data science, the things we process, computing science, the what of data processing, computer science, the how of data processing, informatics, the why of data processing. And amusingly, these four aspects, the data, the what of data processing, the how of data processing, and the why of data processing, correspond to Aristotle's four causes. And Aristotle was a philosopher, Greek, look at his Wikipedia page, we only have 40 minutes. But the good starting point is that both Western and Eastern philosophers were covered in the common curriculum. Okay? So the import of college education in the US is not just we import Western stuff to stuff the head of the Asians, but we do something which is actually balanced and has. Okay. So the common curriculum was the foundations of Yale-NUS College. People are very proud of that. It did not include mathematics. It did not include computing. And there was no reason for that. It's just arbitrary, I asked. Now is as good a time as any to quote Alan Perlis when he said that it goes against the grain of modern education to teach students to program. What fun is there in making plans, acquiring discipline in organizing thoughts, devoting attention to detail, and learning to be self-critical? Okay, sarcastic, but he has a point. Back to the common curriculum. The common curriculum was the foundation of YNC, and it featured both Western and Eastern philosophy, which was its big original point. So it was respectful of both sides and trying to make something new worldwide. So let's get back to Aristotle's four causes. The four causes is a way to distinguish aspects of things. For example, a table a table is made of wood, that's the material cause. It's shaped into 4 feet on a plane surface, that's the efficient cause. It's done according to a design, that's the formal cause, and it's made so that you can sit at it, that's the final cause. And another example is cooking, okay? Patrick Cousteau likes to take that example to illustrate computing. So to make a dish, a cook operates over the ingredients according to the recipe. So that sentence is significant because making a dish is the final cause, is why we do that. The cook operating is the efficient cause. The cook is the actor, cooking, the operating is the action. The ingredients, that's the material cause, what they're operating over. And the recipe is the formal cause, the method to use in order to do what else we want. And so here is the Yale-NUS motto yet again, a community of learning founded by 2 great universities in Asia for the world. And the first director of Yale-NUS structured that motto. Okay, so it's there for everybody to see and nobody sees it. And when I say nobody, I say nobody, okay? I presented Intro to CS like that, and in week 3 I gave us an example, comment to that, and the guys from Yale-NUS, man, they know how to write a lot. And they say beautiful things. And then in week 4, I pointed out 4 causes, guys, and then they were shocked. And that's the problem with modern education. Students learn what the teacher wants, and then they say what the teacher wants, and done. Okay? So the fact to meet teachers who mean what they teach and who take what they teach seriously, that's a shocker for them. And so discovering that the very motto of Yale-NUS was structured around the 4 causes and they hadn't seen it was a shocker. The typical reaction is, gosh, it's true, and I should have seen it. And now they are personally challenged, and now they start to pay attention. So engaging. All right, so here we have data represent information. That's the material course of data science. What we do with the data, that's the efficient course, computer science. How we do it, that's the formal course, computer science. And why we do it, so the final course, informatics. All right. Okay, so here is an analogy with computing and cooking. And I asked that question at my job interview. So to make a dish, a cook operates over the ingredients according to the recipe. All right, the ingredients are the analog of the data. The recipe is the analog of the program. The cook is the analog of the processor. Question, what is the analog of the programmer? And now that's a question for you guys. Okay, so I'll say it again. Which we have just seen that computing can be defined with 4 causes, just like cooking. And the analogy here is to make a dish. A cook operates over the ingredients according to the recipe. So there's an analogy there. The ingredients of the cook are the data that we process. Okay? The recipe, that's the analog of the program. Okay? It tells us what to do to operate over the ingredients. The cook is the analog of the processor. The processor is there executing the instructions. The cook is executing the recipe, okay? So in that context, where we compare computing and cooking, what is the analog of the programmer? Yes, please. The person who wrote the recipe. Okay? And that's the kind of things where the incoming students, we need to open their mind to making comparisons that make sense, okay? And build a landscape where they can actually understand. Okay, that was the first question. And nobody knows how to answer it. Good job. All right, computing and knitting. You know, you want to make a pair of socks or a hat or a sweater, and so you have little bars, and then you have a pan, and then okay, the data are the yarns. That's the threads made of wool, for example. The computer at large is the work environment of the knitter, the person who knits, including, for example, the knitting needles, okay, and everything around. The processor in the computer is the person who is knitting, okay? So that's kind of the same analogies, and then I ask you, what is the knitting analog of a program, and what is the knitting analog of a programmer? Yes? So kind of, can you like emulate the previous answer for who is the knitting analog of the programmer?
I think the program is probably a sweater, whatever we knitted. No?
Yeah. Vikram. Yeah.
The program is the knitting pattern and the programmer is the knitting pattern designer.
Right. So the programmer is the person who wrote this is how to do this is how to knit, and this is how to knit is the analog of the program. It's the things that you need to do in order to carry out the sweater. Okay, so you see, not trivial, right? But it is possible to have a uniform and unified view of computing that will kind of anchor, root, give you foundations on which you can build. And it's not obvious, as you have just discovered. So you're not alone, okay? Like everybody has that problem. All right, computing and making music is another analogy. So assume that the data are the sounds, and assume that the computer is anything that can make a sound, very broad, okay? So the 3 questions are, what is the musical analog of the processor? What is the musical analog of a program? There's no improvisation here, okay? There is a program. And what's the musical analog of a programmer? Yes?
The program is your sheet music.
Yep, the program is the musical score. Yes, good?
The programmer is the guy who wrote it.
Is the composer. Yes, the person who wrote the score, yes. And what's the musical analog of the processor?
Is it an instrument?
No.
Oh, the musician.
But I'm sorry?
It's the musician.
Yes? Okay. All right. Can you feel after these 3 questions how you have a broader grasp of the total basics of computing? And how before that you were a little blinded by details, unstructured details? Okay, so that was the spirit of why I started to introduce computer science at Yale-NUS. All right, a quick word about other uses of the 4 causes. You can use them, believe it or not, to analyze the title of a paper, a report, or a dissertation, and then you get something out of it. And you can also use it to compose the title of a paper, report, or dissertation. So don't hesitate to ask me later. This stuff is really useful. All right, here is the pièce de résistance, a made-up French word in English. Okay, it does not exist in French. So the puzzle is, how do we introduce computer science to newcomers? Okay, which is the question that this talk is answering. So the measure of success is that the students must acquire an actionable knowledge in which they feel secure. Okay, so super high bar. The knowledge that they have must be actionable. They must be able to use it to do things, and then in which they feel secure, because all the students are panicking. All right, so the rationale is learn now and know later. And the challenge is the variety of students. Okay, some students, typically girls, say that they know nothing. Some others, typically boys, say that they know everything. So. And the great equalizer is OCaml. And here is a quote from Lee Kuan Yew, who is the founder of Singapore, about being articulate. Okay, so originally I said about English, so about OCaml, but Martin corrected me and said it's also true about Chinese. The point remains, okay, that things are not just about learning a language, because language comes with fables and proverbs and culture. It's learning a whole value system. Yeah, OCaml is called by value, but that's just a coincidence. And a whole philosophy of life. Yes, totally. Okay? And the rationale is that nobody knows OCaml. Okay? So that means that everybody is equal. And subsidiary point is that OCaml is actually well designed. There is a design. And also, it provides a fantastic step to go from OCaml to the ROP proof assistant, where the types are propositions and the programs are proofs. And that was my contribution to Yale-NUS, my only contribution to Yale-NUS, which was to make this series of 2 courses that has propelled lots of students, which I can quantify. All right, the key pedagogy is to stick to what Aristotle and many others say. People said, go from what is known to what is unknown patiently. Use no forward reference, okay, except for recursion, but otherwise, present things progressively is not trivial at all, okay? And the tactics are to explain things progressively, emphasize their structure, and reuse useful things, okay? It's only useful if it is reused, okay? So to quote, to mention again something I asked Michael Adams at the end of his talk, and so all of you who use the lambda calculus as the motivator for functional programming and spend a lot of time on substitutions, there is no substitution in functional programming. It's implemented with environments, and therefore it's not reused. All the things that the students have learned about substitution, and if it is not reused, it is useless. Okay, radical, but true. So, for example, recursion, okay, which is at the end of the semester, the students should grok recursion. So in week 1, they are self-referential sentences. Which sentences are self-referential and why? And the students are completely in their comfort zone. It's about language. It's about, there's nothing technical about it, but it forces them to crystallize what it means to be self-referential in the same vein as knitting and analogies, okay? Week 2, self-referential grammars, how to have a finite way to describe arbitrarily large data. And then from week 5 to week 13, recursive programs. And yes, there is a linguistic slant. So on a larger scale, locally, making the student feel smart works because that is very addictive. And amazingly, the other course at Yale-NUS kind of didn't do that. The teachers stayed on top, okay, which is frustrating. On a larger scale globally, it's make the students engage in a personal adventure of computational exploration and discovery, not invention. And that's what Christopher Strachey recommended a very long time ago. He felt that computing offered opportunities for adventures of discovery. Okay, and in this computational exploration of discoveries, things make sense because they make sense, not because the teacher said so. So in other words, the key was to make room for the students' growth and watchfully get out of the way so that the students own their success. Okay, and there is a very simple way to measure that. You know the perpendicular pronoun? So it's a thing. So it's the I, okay? I or me or my. And you can measure that in a talk with the number of times the speaker is using the perpendicular pronoun. And if he's using it a lot, ego-driven. But if he doesn't, then there is room for the others to grow. Okay? And the standard mantra that I used, reminder to stay cool, okay? The teacher or the speaker is not the smarter person in the room. And I remind myself that before I give a talk or I go to teach. All right, an example of pacing. There is no programming before week 3. Okay, and the students are in complete panic, those who know everything. They're in complete panic about that. Same when I teach rock-proof assistant. Students say, this is terrible. We're in week 3, we still haven't written a proof. Okay, and they are in panic, okay? But how do you, yeah. Okay, so before that, we talk about program processors, we talk about syntax, we talk about grammars, we talk about abstract syntax tree, we talk about proof trees, huge linguistics land, so that when they start to write something, then they already know the ingredients, you know, from what they know to what they don't know yet. Example, gosh. All right. Example of structuring. So first, what the program is supposed to do. And they write unit test first to enumerate what kind of it is. And then how the program is supposed to do it, write the program. And once that's done, ta-da, test the program with the unit test. Now that worked amazingly well. Okay, so at Yale-NUS, the students had a breadth-first range of knowledge. At the School of Computing, they have a depth-first range of knowledge. Okay, they intersect, but they don't overlap. But the Yale-NUS students, of course, they're ambitious. So of course, they want to go for internship. Okay, so here is a typical interview in an internship. There is the interviewer and there is the student. And the interviewer asks a question which involves programming. And the School of Computing guy just takes a deep breath, puts his hand on his keyboard, and 20 minutes later of complete silence while the interviewer is bored to death, has a program that compiles. And then he has to test it. Okay. The Yale-NUS student, in contrast, has been drilled doesn't know what the guy is asking, because remember, he only had a semester of CS, which is ridiculous. But he has a bright smile, and then he says, let's write some unit tests. And then the interviewer say, wow, you're the first student like forever to actually do that. So yes, let's write some. And then they start to talk. So do we agree that this and that? And then as the unit tests are being enumerated on the common case, on the corner case, and blah, 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 at the end, the student has, you know, between the 2 ears, there is a machine learning thing that is kind of, and the student gets it. And he knows the program because he spent lots of times talking about the tests, okay? A fake quote from Einstein. It's fake, okay, sorry, but it's a good one. If I had 10 hours to solve a really important problem, I would spend 9 hours thinking about the problem and 1 hour thinking about the solution. And so rushing to programming is just completely wrong. But the smart Yale-NUS students, they talk about the the tests, they talk with the interviewer, who is delighted, and at the end they get the job, and the SOC students, no. Which is absurd, because the SOC guy, he knows so much more. Okay, there is a lesson there. Okay. Oh yeah, funny thing too. So they work in group, they're onto working group, you work in the industry as groups. And also, not teaching students who will do computer science is significant, because yes, not all of them will work in computer science, but they will all work with computer scientists. So it's important that they understand how computer scientists think. And that thing was doing that. So fun thing, obviously the guys are going to do the programming because that's serious, and obviously the girls are going to do testing. Okay? And of course it was hilarious when the tests were revealing bugs in the programs. And so the girls kind of built confidence, and the boys built modesty. All right, concrete support. Homemade lecture notes, comprehensive, self-contained, and they can be read forward and backwards. And I realized that by thinking about writing a piece called Demand-Driven Education, and there's this interaction about whether it's better to learn by reading the book or just by saying, I'll just do the exercise, and if I can solve the exercise here and now, I'm done. Okay? And in that discussion, there is, if the lecture notes are well written, you will learn as much by learning forward or learning backwards. And when I articulated that, I was crestfallen because I needed to rethink the entirety of lecture notes. Well, I don't do textbooks that are written like that. But this one is. All right, and last and not least here, the dimension of liberal arts, because remember, it's not computer science students, it's other people. So Nicolas Boileau, 16th century French philosopher, poet, and blah, 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 said, what is understood can be explained. Okay, and what cannot be explained is not understood. All right, Richard Feynman said that as well. So the students buy that. So weekly reports, a midterm project, a term project, an oral exam. Not just one oral exam, two, okay, because they have never had an oral exam, so they are not trained for that, even though I prepare them. Plus, it's excellent training for passing job interviews. All right, so tough question. Do these liberal arts things work for real computer scientists? Okay, School of Computing students. And the amazing answer is yes, they do. Okay, and I'll take that as an evidence from a student comment on nusmods.com, which is a SOC thing. And here is a quote. The weekly hand-ins force you to keep engaged with the course, for which you are not just solving problems, but also writing a full, proper report in LaTeX, where you document your learning and you reflect on the exercise. The report felt like a huge chore at the start, but I eventually realized that the reports are probably the most important bits of work I did for the course in terms of contributing to my learning. And that's the success, okay? When the student realized that by reflecting, the understanding arise, okay, fine, but mission accomplished. And it is a really nice feeling to be able to track your growth throughout the course and really feel like you're getting better each week. Okay. So see how feeling smart is addictive? Good. And once that, there's no limit what students can achieve once you're there. Here is another piece of reflection I wanted to suggest to you. So, do you agree that you learn from your mistakes? Yeah, of course, okay. Make no mistakes, you learn nothing. Good. Yet students are penalized for making mistakes. We give them homework, wrong, not fast enough, wrong. Bummer, right? So to learn from your mistakes, what I did was to offer preliminary comments that identify the beginner's mistake, congratulating the students that they made this beginner's mistake. And the cost is they have to do one more exercise, which they do, okay? So the consequence is that, okay, hold that, to prepare for the exam, the students will read not ChatGPT, not the web, not my lecture notes, but what they wrote. Okay, which is amazing. And it makes students who are secure in their knowledge. All right, by the way, none of that is done anywhere else in math, in physics. Okay, the students grow into a culture of throwaway things. Nothing that I do matter because it's never reused. Plus, it's never perfect, so it's not reusable. So they are nurturing insecurity in so many ways. All right, okay, fine, cold assessment. What precedes is not new, okay? It's just a thought-out organization which is driven by empathy. I remember what it was, and I try to make it better. All right, also, it is not enough, okay, because the liberal arts students, something you cannot imagine, but they care about other things than computer science, which you can't imagine. I couldn't. Right, so yeah. How can they, okay. So now what follows is new, and it did tip the scale. So that's the one new thing. Learning by enacting. So much of the material is conveyed as theater script in the lecture notes, and in the classroom, these theater scripts are read, and this is what we are going to do at the end of this formal talk. I will display 3 scripts, and I want you guys to have the Yale-NUS experience. And if you don't want to read, pass, okay? But I'm sure that by the end of the talk, you will have said your piece. All right, so can you imagine that in the class, all the students voice their learning during each lecture? Okay, typically the students come to the class, shut up, and then leaves. So they are forced to be completely passive. Okay, and if they have to ask questions, like, I don't know, Bertrand Meyer says in KChem, they don't know what to ask. They just, please tell us what to do. Please tell us how to do it. Our mind is, you know, the job of the teacher is that we are given students who are both ignorant and innocent. And we have to work on the ignorance and to respect their innocence. And it is not an easy job. Anyway. So once that happens, a community of learning emerges in the classroom because all the students will have heard all the other students' voice, and they will given them they have made eye contact by passing the microphone, and kind of stunning. All right, so did this introduction to computer science work? Yes, in the sense that the computer science students became ready for the subsequent courses. And the way I did that, arriving after the course was designed, is that I humbly went to talk to each of the teachers of the following course, and I asked them, what do you need your students to know? Okay, and I will not, no, they just should not know enough Python to load library to do machine learning is not a satisfactory answer. What concept, something serious. And then I came back and I integrated that, and one of my colleagues had a funny way of starting his course. He gives a very long multiple choice question with no identification and say, have you heard about this concept? So yeah, I know it, never heard of it, and there is a grade. And then in his own work, at the end of the semester, he asks the same questions, and then he compares to see whether he has been effective as a teacher. And then he told me, it's amazing, what you do has an impact. The things have absolutely changed from the moment where you started to do that. I can see it, okay? The incoming students are more clued in. So there is that. Funny thing is that non-CS students exported CS values into their major, which was very disturbing for my colleagues. Because in social sciences, nothing is objective. There is nothing, everything is subjective. So if there is a problem, it's your fault, okay? Yeah, but it's just you who say, you're confused. And that's it. You roll into the flower, you're fish trying to drown the fish. But not here, okay? There's an element of objectivity. And the students scored internship on summer jobs, that's a fact. And because they are young and they are smart and they learn quickly, and anyway, in the jobs, they tell you first what you need to know. So the more open you are, the better. Okay, so from the mouth of babes, a series of quotes. An email students send me an email. and the subject was my internship in computer vision. And the quote is, even though it was a completely new concept for me, I found myself using the logic and skills I use in Intro to CS to program the project. Okay, and the student is surprised. You're not? Not? But the student was surprised. Wow. Okay, even though I'm not particularly interested in writing programs or learning programming language, the intellectual challenge found in this field is simply unparalleled. Feel good, right? But the thing is that the bar was allegedly very high at Yale-NUS College, so eliciting this kind of comments is meaningful. All right, the euphoric feeling when everything clicks and your understanding comes together is indescribable and incomparable. Okay? Predicted badge. I'm a better student because of this course. Okay, that's always nice to read. We learned a lot more about not just computer science, but we also learned a lot about ourselves. Okay, now from the mouth of baby, a reminder to stay cool. Your intro to computer science and the effort put into it was actually worth my time. Okay, so just remember, you're not the smartest person in the room. Okay, it astonishes me how much I've learned over the course of the semester. Okay, that's standard. And that one is really beautiful. In contrast to the stereotype about computer science being mechanical, the lessons and reflections contained in this report are as much a part of a beautiful personal journey as they are a part of a formal educational one. The project has been an all-encompassing experience. Multiple times in the solving and writing process, I felt transported in an agonistic trance, a deep desire to understand, truly understand exercises and my solutions. It has been most definitely a new academic experience for me, and even though it drained me of physical rest, it filled me with intellectual satiation. Okay, see, you teach, liberal arts guys, and you get that kind of literature. So much fun. All right, from the mouth of babies. I also have learned that procrastination is something that I need to get rid of. Wisdom. Lastly, I had lots of fun inserting relevant quote. Yeah, self-reference. Okay, and then the one which is the most significant one. Intro to CS was the most liberal arts course I have taken, and that came repeatedly. Okay, which, yeah, it's a pity that Yale-NUS closed because there really was something there that could be generalized, but hey. All right, last and actually least, at Yale-NUS College, the gender ratio was 52% female and 48% male, and the most nationalities were represented. The ambition of the college was to have a representative of each of the countries on Earth. Very ambitious. And the question which arises, was this diversity an issue when introducing computer science? Okay, you get that all the time. And the answer is not at all. And I counter ask, why should it be an issue? It's objective. All right, conclusion before we move to the theater play. At Yale-NUS College, where it was unquestioned that CS is just coding, whatever coding means, students were introduced to computer science in a logical, progressive, empathetic, and rewarding way that has made them relevant and ready for the 21st century in an innovative synergy with liberal arts and science. Thank you for your time. Okay. All right. So now for the game. You're welcome to leave or to do that, but the game, and there are some students here who have done that live when they were learning, is there are dialogues, okay? And then the students just read them. So do we have a microphone? Start with Kenichi. And you just read the first line. So it's the lecture notes that start with a plea for precision, where I beg them to be precise in what they say, okay? And you can start. Halcyon, that's the representative of liberal arts.
But isn't computer science just coding?
Yep, Martin?
And what is coding?
Loki, coding is when you use a for loop.
Here's hoping that you are starting to discover that computer science is no more about coding than mathematics is merely about counting.
Okay, I just fed you a super good argument if you are told that because then you can continue from there. Yeah, sure. And literature is just about writing, right? And so on. Okay. So is it below? Yes. Okay. So this is the. So now we start to take off. So what is well understood is delivered clearly. Okay. That's a French Alexandrine. It has 12 syllables. Okay. So this is the first week. I'm taking the students from where they are, which is liberal arts, and I'm getting them close to computer science. So have fun.
Actually, Boileau's French Alexandrine, or again iambic hexameter, comes with another one.
It does?
It does. And the second one conveys that it is actually easy to state something that we understand clearly.
Come again?
It's another instance of what and how.
I'm sorry, what is an instance?
I am sorry too. An instance is an example, an application of something general.
For example, the binomial expansion for x plus 1 squared is an instance of the binomial expansion for x plus y squared, where y is 1. And the binomial expansion for 2 plus z squared is an instance of the binomial expansion for x plus y squared, where x is 2 and y is z.
Thanks.
Also, the binomial explanation for x minus y squares is an instance of the binomial explanation expansion for x plus y squares, where y is minus y, since x minus y equals x plus minus y.
Thank you, I get it.
Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce the name.
Halcyon.
Halcyon. You were saying that Boileau's two French Alexandrians are an instance of what and how, illustrating the measure of our understanding.
Right. The first measure of our understanding is in the first line, what we say. And the second measure of understanding is in the second line, how we say it.
And the two lines are?
Sorry, and pardon my French too while you're at it.
Ce que l'on conçoit bien s'énonce clairement, et les mots pour le dire arrivent aisément.
English?
So you need to be rougher than that. English? No, American. Okay.
English?
Yes.
The second line directly translates as, and the words to say arise easily.
Which is not just good news in content, but also a French Alexandrine in form.
Yeah, keep going.
Well, yes. Both the original and in the translation have 12 syllables.
Oh, yeah, go. Translating our youth.
Translating arrivant as arise was daring, but it does preserve the alliteration.
At the modest price of considering that arise has 3 syllables, yes, but I think it works.
And you kept the adverb at the end of the first line too.
Yes. What is well understood is delivered clearly.
Yeah.
Last line.
Yes. Oh, no, I think there was already another Alexandrine.
Yep.
Well, yes. And I translated conçoit from the verb concevoir, to conceive, as understand, because that's really what Boileau means here.
Isn't deliver a bit heavy-handed?
Well, énoncer means to state.
L'énoncé du problème.
Is the problem statement. I played a bit with translating.
S'énonce clairement.
As I told with clarity, which was the contender? What is well understood is told with clarity, and the words to say it arise easily.
Right. With clarity feels more comparing than clearly here.
You need to quote, air quote. Okay, carry on.
Perhaps, but it is told with clarity also feels a bit choppy. And so in the end, I kept the two adverbs, which is also what Baruch did. Sorry. What is well understood is delivered clearly, and the words to say it arise easily.
Okay, Umberto Eco jumps in. He's the guy who made the name of the rose.
Haha. Love your journey towards saying almost the same.
Prof. Eco, thanks for stopping by. I simply love your book of collected articles to say almost the same experiments in translation about translating from
You can skip the
one natural language to another. A lot of it directly applies to implementing compilers for programming languages. It's so striking.
All right, this is the picture of the book. To say almost the same, experiments in translation. Striking pictures. Okay. Next.
Oh, the book cover of its French edition is pretty striking too.
So that was the picture.
And in the French edition, the introduction is mind-opening.
We are drifting.
More like we are drifting. No, don't just say it right. Okay, this is your chance.
Oh, okay. We are drifting.
Perfect.
Sorry, youthful enthusiasm and all that. This figment of imagination felt too good to let it pass by. And yes, I do know that Umberto Eco has already passed away.
You can still read his books.
All right. Okay, so it goes on. So this was the first. Second one is, so there is an exercise about composing our own definitions. And the exercise is compose a definition by genus and species, that is by type and difference, and by using some or all of the four causes. So now there is a solution by genus and species, which I will inflict to you.
Genus and species now.
Yeah, you kind of have to say genus and species now.
Genus and species now?
Yep. Martin?
Yes, that's pretty much the norm in biology.
Right. The type of the thing being defined is stated first, and then something that is specific to this thing.
No, go ahead.
Oh, you mean like Homo sapiens?
Yes. And so, for example, a werewolf would be Homo sapiens lycanthropus, a further refinement of Homo sapiens.
For another example, chocolate is defined as Theobroma cacao. Theobroma.
So, interpreters and compilers?
Perfect.
How about defining an interpreter as a processor for executing programs?
And a compiler as a processor for translating programs.
That does the job.
Perfect.
All right, now let's say almost the same thing in Latin.
Huh. How does one say program in Latin?
How about programma artis n?
Neutral, yes.
Then, as a processor executing programs, the definition of an interpreter is actor programmers agents.
Yep.
And as a processor translating or again converting programs, the definition of the compiler is actor programmers converters.
Perfect.
Effector might be a bit more specific than actor in this case.
So Annette Bianusia, that's one of the students of Peter Tiemann who actually knows Latin.
Could be.
Eugenio Moji is a guy who made monads on effects, right? So effectful, monads, Eugenio Moji. Yes, carry on.
Professor Bianusia, Professor Margi, thanks for jumping into the fray.
Right, so you can see there is a running gag there. There's something going on, and there is someone relevant who jumps to it, and Mimir is a complete sucker for celebrities. So we say, ah, okay. So, Halcyon.
So, effector programmers agents for interpreter, and effector programmers convertants for compiler.
If you guys say so.
But still.
Still?
Well, if a program is seen as a piece of code, could we say codex as the Latin for code? That makes sense semiotically.
It does. But don't let me interrupt your negotiation.
Okay, so Umberto Eco is the guy one of the founding fathers of semiotics. And semiotics means not like semantics, what things mean, but the social context or the cultural context of what is meant. And don't let me interrupt your negotiation. That's a quote of the book that translating is negotiating, saying almost the same. And that's done by a negotiation between the reader and the writer. Okay.
Thanks. So codex, codict M,
Masculine.
that is compatible with the Latin edition of Wikipedia about computer programs.
So if the student clicks, he arrives at the Wikipedia page. Okay.
Yes. So as a processor executing programs, the definition of an interpreter is actor, codis, agents, or again, effector, codices, agents.
And as a processor translating programs, the definition of a compiler is actor codix combatants, or again, effector codix combatants, or perhaps just batants.
There you go.
How about we define the 4 causes of a printer in English? You know, something concrete, nothing fancy.
You mean not a 3D printer?
Right, a line printer to print the contents of a file on paper.
That's the final cause right there.
Good. So the material cause?
Well, the paper for sure, as well as its tray.
And the ink too.
Right, and the devices to affix the ink on the paper.
And the input file as well.
Okay, that pretty much covers the material cause.
The efficient cause is all the processing from receiving the file to reading it, and from fetching a sheet of paper in the tray to affixing ink on it based on the contents of the file.
Yup.
So the formal cause?
It will be all the algorithms executed, the protocol used to receive the file, the method used for reading it, and the strategy of affixing the ink on the paper.
And if the printer is a duplex one?
Also part of the formal cause.
And the electricity?
Well, it's an enabler, so let's say it's part of the efficient cause.
And are we done?
We are done.
Oh, we are done.
So no Latin?
No Latin.
But still?
Still?
Exit is Latin for he leaves, he goes out.
Which Anton just did.
And not just that.
Right, data is a Latin word too.
In plural form, the singular is datum.
Which is why we often say a piece of data and a data object.
Duly noted.
Okay, you see how the students end up having used lots of words, lots of concepts by enacting a discussion. And then that gives them directions, that gives them models, that give them concrete examples. And the typical comments I get at the end of the semester or later is, I like the dialogues because they were telling me an example of reasoning, okay, and not because the teacher said that, but because I voice it, okay? And then what typically was added is that it raised, so it stated questions that I would have been not able to state, and it mentioned questions that I would have been unable to conceive. Okay, so effective. The last one, and I'm almost done. This one is much shorter. Don't know, it's really, really, really worth it, okay? No, I know, but it's really, really short, and it will live. You're welcome to leave.
We also have a second session.
Yeah, after the lunch.
After lunch, exactly.
Yep. So I
just leave a bit of space for lunch.
Very true, but this will just take 5 minutes, and it will be completely unforgettable. You will not make me stop. So, all right. So this one illustrates the contrast between a liberal arts student, that's Halcyon. Halcyon is the mascot of the college, and typical scientists who are very pragmatic. And now there is Halcyon who is trying to do his liberal arts things, and the scientists who are doing their science things, and then we stop. Okay?
And then Juliet asked, heartbreakingly, "What's in a rose?"
She did? In any case, there's perfume, for sure.
And petals. A lot of petals.
Right, and when the outer ones dry out and fall, what remains is the rose.
Until all that is left is a dry stem.
With less perfume, which actually suggests that the perfume was in the petals.
I don't quite think that this is what Juliet meant by what's in a rose.
Sorry.
Two consonants and two vowels, perhaps?
So a four-letter word?
No, I mean a rose, not the name of a rose.
This is getting interesting. Do you guys need a chairperson?
Okay, Umberto Eco's rise to fame with the book The Name of the Rose, and there's a movie as well with Sean Connery. Yes. And
this is getting interesting. Do you guys need a chairperson?
Prof. Eco, thanks for sticking around.
And that's the end. Okay, so you can see that this one is also illustrating the kind of spin-off dialogues that they can be when people are bringing on their own culture and then talking about the content of the course. And at the break, okay, they talk about the dialogues, okay, and they reread them at home, okay. Can you imagine that the students read the lecture notes? One, in class because I make them read, and two, at home, so they read the lecture notes twice. Imagine that. Yeah, I know it's hard to imagine. Yep. So it awakes that interest, and it gives them lots of vocabulary. And in the course of the semester, okay, remember they come from everywhere. So the accent is extremely specific to each of them. And by the end, after a few weeks, they read English a lot clearer. And the one at the beginning say, "I'm too shy." But no, it's fun. So why is it fun? And my model was Aaron Sorkin, who is the guy who wrote West Wing and that kind of things. And one of the typical comments they have about what he writes, like West Wing, the TV series, is that it makes the audience feel smart. Because it's smart people talking about smart things, and so I try to emulate that, and it worked fantastically. The students engaged and then reused the words. It was really amazing to find an echo of all of that in their reports. So that was how CS was introduced at Yale-NUS College. Thank you very much.